Welcome, everybody, to Collie Greens and Nerdy Things, the one stop shop for all your things nerdy. My name is King, and this is JC3. And today we're going to be talking about Disney Plus's show, What If Season 3. It just premiered over the holidays, 8 straight days in a row. Pretty great show. It is a show that talks about what if crazy things happen in the world of Marvel that we have not seen yet. So let's get started talking about this. Let's jump in with JC3 and tell me, what are kind of your overall thoughts of the series so far?
Hey, what's up, man? Appreciate this. This is great, man. Honestly, I overall with this final season, I was entertained. I had a lot of fun with it. Also, I was also left wanting a bit more, a bit more. It's kind of bittersweet, knowing this is the final season because it feels like there were so many ideas left on the table. But I feel like we still got a lot of good concepts, a lot of good ideas that were explored in this final season, and it kind of gave us a couple good character arcs as well, and closed them out in a way that I felt was satisfying for the most part.
You know what? I really enjoyed the show. It probably wasn't one of Disney's best shows ever, but I really enjoyed the show because I like the idea of playing with the cinematic toys in a different way where you put them in strange and crazy scenarios. And being that this is the third season, they've kind of really ramped it up. Excuse me. They've kind of really ramped it up in a way that I really enjoy so far. Um, I kind of want to just kind of go through some of the episodes, you know what I mean? We can kind of talk about what are some of our favorite moments or favorite episodes along the way. So let's start off with the first episode, which I like to call "What If the Avengers Were the Power Rangers."
Pretty much.
What'd you
Yeah,
think
pretty
of that
much.
episode?
Honestly, like other than a couple more episodes from the season, that might actually be my favorite one.
Really?
Just yeah, just because of the references they make to the Winter Soldier and the little changes they make there. The Winter Soldier is already like my favorite MCU movie like ever. So the changes that they made to that with Sam and Bruce Banner's Hulk, that was a good take on it. That was an interesting take that I thought turned out very outlandish in a lot of ways, but that's what the what if show's for. And of course, like you just said, the Power Rangers, that's what I grew up on, that Gundam. So having those references in there and having them, like morph together into one like Megazord, I was satisfied. I liked the action from it. It was pretty nice. It was nice to me.
I agree, man. I'm for sure a kid of the 90s who definitely watched Power Rangers religiously, to the point where I'm sure I drove my mom and people around me crazy because I loved the Power Rangers. And to kind of see them do that story, they kind of turned the story one on its face by having having Sam Wilson be the running character in the beginning of the movie or the show, kind of like what he did with Cap, where he just kept lapping Bruce Banner, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah,
the size of those Gundams that they are in was just incredible, man. Like those things were huge and massive. And it's kind of crazy to think that superhero characters would end up using giant Gundams, even though like Photon Monica Rambeau is extremely powerful. You know what I mean? And Shang-Chi and a couple of those other characters are extremely powerful, but they're still using a Gundam just because the monster is so big. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It was a fun take on um, Avengers having to kind of turn into a Megazord.
exactly like that, and also exploring, like what if the Hulk got even worse?
Right.
Like it's essentially he started a gamma war, by trying to fix himself again, and it drove them to the point where they had to start using suits like that because he was legit, like he became that powerful. It was kind of like Like there was some like Godzilla vibes, going on up in there. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
right, right. And so like with with them having to do that, especially after like telling us through that episode that the original Avengers were taken out by these new monsters and this new Hulk, and so they had to resort to those mech suits. And Sam became the leader over Steve Rogers. So like I felt like that was like it was cool to see it as well, just because we know eventually we're going to see the new Captain America movie next month, and we're going to get some interactions with him and another Hulk. He's not green, but we'll see how that turns out live action. So this was, I feel, was kind of a little taste, of what we can get from that movie as well.
Agreed, agreed. This gave us a Hulk story that we don't often see. With the Hulk being such a like Godzilla-esque character, such a, you know what I mean, a giant monster. It was so good, man. It was so good. And to see him kind of walk off into the sunset with the rest of his monster crew in that universe, there's just big giant gamma monsters walking around. It was a pretty good episode. But that brings
Yeah,
us into episode number two, which I know because you are a humongous Eternals fan, had to be your favorite. So, what'd you think of Agatha Goes to Hollywood?
I'm I'm glad Agatha got some screen time, more screen time, for that matter. She had a great, live action show. And if we were to put her in a Hollywood musical situation, ironically, her show was like that as well. Why not at least pair in an interesting Eternal that also has some comic relief? uh, I'm glad they chose Kingo over other choices that they could have made, because at least I like that Eternal. But I mean, there were still some. There was some good bits in there, even though, like you said, I'm just the greatest Eternals fan. I'm the best. Like Eternals is just, it's so good. It's so good.
I mean, if I could
But
just get you to stop talking about the Eternals every time we hang out, man, that would be, I mean, it'd be best for my life.
hey, listen, I don't. I make it a point. You know this. I make it a point not to bring that movie up. I'm sure a lot of people bring a point not have a point not to bring that movie up. But I appreciate the second episode at least touching on like the celestial problems that we've had. We've always been saying, there's a celestial just frozen in the sky and nobody's doing anything about it. I'm glad that we got more from the celestials, and they took it in a direction that obviously nobody could see coming, with Agatha becoming super powerful and being able to take out one of the well, actually, yeah, taking out Airsham. But at the same time, though, when she took him out, it kind of made me feel justified in the way I feel about the whole Eternals brand in the first place. So, what you think?
I thought it was interesting, man. Kingo was a good choice, being that he's thousands of years old. You know what I mean, and a Bollywood actor. That if they're gonna do a Hollywood story, that you would want to bring Kingo in. You know, and Kamel Nanjiani is such a hilarious comedian. They're back and forth between them, where it seems like it's contentious, but they're doing these dances. You know what I mean? So it's almost like a fight,
Mhm.
like a musical would, where they're
Yeah.
being mad at each other, but it's all done in rhythmic dancing. And I thought that was pretty cool that she needed to do her spell, but she needed it to be bigger. So she needed it to be kind of a movie production. She disguised doing all of her spells as a witch through the guise of entertainment. So it wouldn't seem extreme because it's a movie.
Mhm.
I love that, and I thought it was interesting that, she needed Kingo's power. In this universe, it doesn't look like she needs to be hit to take her power, or for her to take power. She just seemingly could take it, and she took
Right.
Kingo's power and then ended up taking the power of the Celestial, which was Tiamat in the planet, once she got Tiamat's power, then she was just talking a lot of smack to Erisham. He showed up on some, boss level, energy, and she was laughing in his face. And it is pretty crazy. It was kind of funny.
It was. It was funny.
Yeah, it was kind of funny to see that because, she's so Agatha, right? Where she just kind of has a laissez-faire attitude about things. And this is this big, serious cosmic being that she has just stole his power and didn't give a shit. It was pretty hilarious. But I gotta say, out of all the episodes, it's probably a little lower on my like meter.
I I would say for me, like I said, it was okay. Just because, like I said, I felt that we got somewhere at least with the Eternals and the Celestial story. At the same time, just the way that she dealt with Arishem, it just made me still feel like, yeah, like the Eternals are here, but okay, the Eternals are here, or like we've dealt with the Celestials, but okay, like what else is there to do? Like even after we had that episode, I still don't feel as interested in the Eternals or the Celestials. If that makes sense.
Well, it's kind of funny too that you say that because a lot of the rest of the shows, or not the rest of the shows, but the rest of the episodes in this series, have to do with the emergence of the Celestial. So it seems to be this big background running theory that's happening in What If. I don't know if that's a signal that Marvel plans to do more with those characters since they're kind of saying, here's a bunch of stories surrounding them, but we will see kind of what they want to do. We'll kind of see exactly what they want to do with those characters and kind of how they go about that in the future. They seem to be laying some kind of eggs for that character. So we'll see. But let's move on to my favorite episode, I think, out of all of them, and that is the Red Guardian and the Winter Soldier buddy cop episode. Uh,
Just about to say the best one. Yeah, yeah.
it was probably the funniest out of all the episodes. Uh,
Hmm.
it had a lot of like humor in spots that you thought would be more serious, talking about killing Tony Stark's parents, but Red Guardian stops them and they get into this fight in the middle of the street and Bucky bites him on the leg. It's all played for laughs. It is a really, really good episode. They brought in Obadiah Stane, and then we got to see um Bill Foster. We got to see Bill
Giant Man.
Foster, Giant Man, which was fantastic to actually see him in action. So this was by far my favorite episode. It was the funniest, easily.
I'm with you on the definitely the funniest episode. Well, it was one of the most funny episodes for me. There's one more that we'll talk about that I think might have been just a bit funnier, but this one was a really good buddy cop episode, like you said. The fight between Red Guardian and Winter Soldier. I liked it because, like, seeing that again, Captain America Winter Soldier reference, just remembering the fight that they had in the street, and then you compare the fight that Red Guardian has with Winter Soldier in this one. But it's played up for laughs, but it's supposed to, just because you're really not supposed to take that character too seriously. But no, I enjoyed that. It also made me just wonder how, since Tony Stark's parents were saved, but yeah, apparently, according to the end of the episode, he still became Iron Man. So that left me wondering, oh, like how did that still happen? And even with Obadiah Staines coming back, which that was a nice little deep cut, nice reference, seeing him like suggesting that he had something to do with the killing of his parents, that whole time. Like it gave ideas that I wanted to explore more, but I still enjoyed the episode.
I would agree that they definitely left some stuff on the cutting room floor to be desired. You know, I do want to know what led Tony to becoming Iron Man since his parents were there. And, you know what I mean? Did his father, Howard, end up firing Obadiah Stane? Or
Hmm.
at the end of the episode, you see the Red Guardian joins the Avengers in their classic pose for the Battle of New York. So I got a lot of
Yeah.
questions on like where that universe goes after this episode. But it was probably one of the more funnier, enjoyable ones. And the episodes start to get a little bit like more dark and somber from this standpoint on. So I really enjoyed that. But
Right.
let's just move on to the next episode, which is Darcy Lewis and Howard the Duck having a baby or having an egg that turns into a baby. What I thought was interesting in the beginning of the episode is Darcy Lewis was pregnant and she gave birth,
Uh,
and like presumably 9 months of gestation, and she gave birth to an egg that then still needed time to gestate. So I thought that was interesting in the beginning of that episode, but this episode was kind of serious in its tone, but also played for laughs the entire time.
I absolutely agree that this is the episode to me that I think was actually the funniest, just because of the outlandishness and absurdity of Howard the Duck and Darcy having a kid or having an egg, right? Uh, because I mean, and this was also the first episode that kind of plays off as a sequel episode to one of the earlier episodes in the series.
Absolutely. From season two when they met at Thor's big rager in Vegas.
Hmm. Yep, yep. So that was nice to it was fun to get like a spinoff of what happened in their adventure. But at the same time, I was wondering like kind of where it was all going to lead to towards. And I feel like there was I feel like where it ended, they like the creators, they wanted to do something like they wanted to use somebody else, but I guess they couldn't, so they decided to come up with the new character of their new baby, being Birdie. But I feel like before we even got to the end game of that, just the whole like just everybody trying to get the egg. You know, all of the old villains from like the past MCU coming back, like even forgotten villains that we haven't seen before, like Caecilius, the Dark Elf was in there. You had
Malekith.
the Dark Order. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Dark Order as well. And the most notable villain that came back in that was Thanos, and it was also cool just to hear Josh Brolin's voice, return just for that role. So yeah, the whole vibe of them going after the egg kind of gave me like an end game type of feel when they were all trying to get the gauntlet. You know.
But what they did is they turned this one on its head by having so much comedy when everyone's running past trying to get the egg. And you look at Ebony Maw and he says, I think we got to call this one in. You know what I mean? And he's like, we got to call Thanos. You know what I mean? And Thanos is like, what is this? And he's like, it's a magical egg. I don't know. You know, it was played for laughs, especially when you got they went to Jotunheim to hide with Loki and the Frost
Hmm.
Giants, and then you get there, and him and his dad have started a resort on Jotunheim for the Frost Giants resort. It was fantastic. And then there's a moment when Loki helps them that his dad says that he's gonna take him out of his inheritance.
Uh,
It is all played for laughs. I mean, there's that moment when they're all when the egg kind of starts floating up and starts getting magical, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And they're all kind of looking at him eyes wide, and then Caecilia's head pops in, and he just goes, "Seize him!" And everyone starts running towards them, and it was the most ridiculous episode just because you
yeah.
had Malekith, Caecilius, Yondu, Thanos, even Nick Fury, and everyone trying to get this damn egg just because it happened during the convergence, which is another
Yep.
celestial thing when this baby was born. And then Birdie is supposed to be some kind of crazy magical thing, or at least that's what the world is expecting. It was such a funny episode to have so many laughs and be so kind of serious in tone music wise, but then be joking around the entire time. It was fantastic.
Yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed it. The most I won't say entertaining, the most funny one, funniest one to me, and and later we find out that it lays the groundwork for a new hero that does a lot very quickly, but we will get to
Yeah, yeah. And I thought that was pretty interesting that um they ended up using that character later on, as we'll discuss, but in a full adult form, which was pretty crazy. So I thought
yeah.
that was a pretty cool episode. But then the next episode is our girl Riri Williams, and she is the last person living in a world where Tiamat was actually born and cracked apart the earth. And in that moment, Quentin Beck seized power and started using his spells or illusions of magic to dominate the world that they were in and make Vision, White Vision, his like uh, soldier or general. Such an interesting story.
A very interesting story. Again, one of the episodes where I really like the concept and I like the idea of that whole thing, just because, again, like you said, we get Mysterio back and he's taking control of things. He's in control of White Vision, who is already OP. So I was wondering what that was going to look like. Riri coming back as Ironheart. It was good to see her. I was just I still I wanted to feel a connection with the character, but we haven't seen her since Wakanda Forever, you know, and her show hasn't come out yet. So when I saw this episode, I like the episode and I like what they did, but I feel like they kind of wanted Ironheart to come out first before we got this episode. Would you agree?
I would 100% agree because I don't think they really gave us enough to care about the stakes of what was
Right,
going on in the story. She's a character we just met, so to leave her in a universe where she's the last hope makes it kind of a bit of a far stretch. Even though I love the character, you know, from the
right,
comics, I love her. I love her in Wakanda Forever. But there wasn't much stakes for an audience person to feel because we haven't had a lot of time with her. So at this
right.
point, this is our second time seeing her on screen. I got what they were going for, and that's kind of why I said it was the darkest of the episode because they want you to feel the weight
For
of
sure.
what's going on in that world. But I think it was a bit of a they should have done it with an ensemble and not just Riri by herself, just because the audience hasn't got to know her as well. But it was a pretty compelling story. We got to see Wong, we got to see Valkyrie. Um, One thing that was bugging me about this episode was even if the planet was torn apart, we wouldn't have gravity. So there's people who are just living on these rocks and they're going back and forth and they're breathing oxygen. And it's like, dude, if our planet busts apart, there would be nobody.
Yeah, it'd be done. We'd be dead like that. Like, yeah, you have a good point there. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it kind of took me out of it because I was like, there's no way these people would even survive, even in a Marvel world. You know what I mean? There's no way these people
Mm,
would survive. The planet is in pieces. You know what I mean?
right.
But it was an interesting way to see Quentin Beck come back. We haven't seen Mysterio since Spider-Man No Way Home or Far From
Uh,
Home.
Far from home.
Yeah, Far From Home. So it's been a while. So I thought that was cool. And this marks the first episode in this series where we see that the other watchers are now watching Uatu, which in the story we don't know that that's his name yet, even though in real life we do. But this is the moment when the other watchers start to watch the watcher.
Yes, and this is where we get this is where we kind of start on the main story of this season and how and how they want to close things out because we've reached a point where he's interfered too much and they feel like they need to step in now. I believe the names were the Emergence, the Incarnate, and the Executioner, which as soon as I saw them, I thought about those Watchers from the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie
Hmm.
that we're talking to Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm hoping it's not confirmed, but I'm hoping that those are the same Watchers that were talking to him, just because that'd be a nice little connection. But it was cool seeing uh the story progress this way and then wondering like, oh, okay, like now they're watching him, like what are they going to do, what are they going to do next from it, you know.
Right. It definitely opens up the story of what they're really trying to tell in this series. And the watcher going too far and then things changing in the future, which we'll get to in later episodes. So let's move forward to the next episode, which is a Wild Wild West episode featuring Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop Hawkeye as an adult. And what'd you think of this episode when you popped it on?
I would say this was probably my least favorite episode of the season. uh Barring the Eternals episode, which again I was fine with that, it's fine, I won't get into that. But yeah, this was probably my least favorite just because I feel like they wanted to go for a different idea for this episode, but they chose not to for certain reasons, and this is the one that we ended up with. It for me personally, it just left a lot to be desired. How about you?
So I had kind of mixed feelings on this episode when I first watched it. I love a good spaghetti western story. I love a good old west story. So I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed having our Marvel characters in a universe that has technologically moved forward, but still has the essence of the old west, with barns and saloons, but they could have, train cars that float using, propulsion technology. So I
Hmm.
really did love that, and I love Simu Lee. Huge fan of Simu Lee, so I loved seeing him on screen more, and I love that character. I would 100% agree with you that it seems like there was a different script for this show or for this episode that we didn't get to see. Something was different that we didn't get to see because a couple things were strange. One, it seems kind of an empty story about him going after the hood, and then you find out that the hood is his sister and she killed the hood and took his powers. But to what end? You know what I mean? Why? Why was it, presumed that she was kidnapped? And I think it's cool that they call Shang-Chi the Ten Rings. Um, and they all use martial arts, but I thought it was weird or an interesting take that he didn't use his powers or nor the Ten Rings themselves at all. But his sister has the ability to cloak herself in some kind of invisibility. They didn't explain whether that was technology or mystical or what that was. They kind of just breezed past a lot of the details you needed for this episode. So I did enjoy it in a way, but at the same time, uh, I was left wanting a lot more and a lot more from that universe. So it is kind of sad that we probably won't ever go back to it to get more uh, a conclusion.
I would agree with you. And like you said, seeing Simu Lee back as Shang Chi, like that was nice. Like he had one of the better movies of this whole saga since we started the multiverse saga. I feel like he's had one of the better movies. So it was really good to see him back. See his sister come back in. But then we got but then we got introduced to a villain that for the first time. But then I think I heard that as well, that the Hood, he's supposed to be in Ironheart as well, which again makes me feel like, again, like they wanted the Ironheart show to come out before this, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, like who's the Hood, like, so I didn't have that connection that I feel like they wanted us to have at first. But it was also, but I guess the payoff was okay in regards to that. And plus it was also good seeing Kate Bishop, because we haven't seen her since her cameo spot in the which show, do you remember what the show, that the last show she was in when Yelena was recruiting?
She it wasn't Yelena. The last time I think we saw her was at the end.
Marvels, huh?
Yeah, it was the end of the Marvels when Kamala Khan was recruiting her uh
Right.
to make the Young Avengers. So I think that was the last time we saw Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop.
Right, and that's the other thing too. Like it's good to see these characters, right? But we haven't seen these characters in a while. We haven't seen Shang-Chi since 2021, and Kate Bishop since the Hawkeye series, which I think that came at the end of 21. And they also planted seeds for Iron Fist in this episode,
Yes.
which I was
Good.
which, which I was okay with, uh, especially because it looks like we're not gonna they weren't gonna stick with the Iron Fist that we got from that Netflix series. So that was cool, but it also made me think, like, man, y'all should have just done like a Shang Chi versus Iron Fist situation.
They could have really written a cool story to really bring in the Iron Fist. I'm not gonna lie, I did think it was a little weird the way they chose to do the Iron Fist for the little boy. I like the idea of original Iron Fist being curly haired white boy Danny Rand. You know what I mean? I like that version and that Netflix version of them. But, given that I don't know if What If will get another season, I don't know if they'll ever pay that off to tell us what little boy Iron Fist would turn into. I think you made a really good point that I think that this was supposed to be later in the slate or having shows that went before, because you're right, they would have introduced the Hood and they would have gave us more Riri, which would have made a couple of these stories make better sense.
Hmm. Yeah, like I feel like that's just mostly what we were missing from some of the season overall, was just connectivity.
Right.
Connecting with these characters. I mean, because we've seen some of these characters, but like I said, we haven't seen them in a while, and then we get introduced to characters that we were supposed to have seen by this point, but we haven't because of delays. So it just that there's some parts that just felt a little empty.
Right, right. I agree. I agree. Well, let's move on to the next episode, which feels kind of like for me a two-parter. Towards the finale, this is kind of the opening of that two-parter. We jump into a world where that big tentacle Cthulhu monster is coming in to destroy. Um, it looks like Xandar, and it looks like Nebula is the leader of Xandar, which is pretty cool. And then we get our Captain Carter appearance, our Captain Britain appearance with Storm, Kuhori, which I loved. Yeah, I loved Kuhori. And then Birdie. And then we see adult Birdie come into the scene. So I love this female lineup that they have, these four girls. Incredible. Incredible.
Absolutely. Like, I was on board honestly when I saw Captain Carter come on the scene. For me personally, she's like my favorite character in the whole What If series, just because of the arc that they've given her from the beginning to now. So seeing her back was awesome. Like you said, Kahori, we get her back as because she's a tie-in from a previous episode in season 2. So it was good to have her back. And like you said, storm wielding Mjolnir like that
Pink.
was one of the that's peak. Yeah, like that was one of the things that I wanted to see the most from this season, just to see how they would treat her character crossing over from the X-Men '97 show into this. So no, that it was amazing to see the both of them on screen.
Oh, dude, it was so peak to see her with Milner.
Yeah.
It was so crazy, man. I love that moment, and when they kind of all flew up into action, you know what I mean, to like climb this giant monster and destroy it. It was pretty damn gangster, dude. And Captain Carter has been fighting that thing since season 1. So
Season 1.
I think it
Yeah.
was time for her to get her get back, man. I think it was time for her to get her get back. And I'm happy to see that they still got Haley Atwell doing her thing. I mean, the character is fantastic. And we know that they're going to bring it into live action for Secret Wars. So I'm pretty excited to see that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that she did get her get back, my guy. And she went right through that thing's eye. Yeah, I think she got her comeuppance. I think she's good. But yeah, seeing all of that was amazing. Animation on that was on point. We also mentioned Birdie as well. I appreciate. I like the character. I was like, oh wow, we did a time jump. She ain't a baby no more. But I'm like, but what they did with her was pretty cool. Did she give you any other vibes of a superhero
Oh,
by
yeah.
chance?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She was easily a stand in for Rogue. That that
Rogue.
that was my initial thought is she was easily a stand-in for like a rogue character. Raspy voice, smart, has a lot of energy, ready to jump into the fight immediately. Uh, that was
Mhm.
my initial thought, especially the hairstyle really kind of did that for me. But yeah, that's kind of who I was thinking. Who was your guess?
My guess, by the way, that's actually a great comparison as well. Because I didn't think of that raspy voice, color hair. Yep, really good. My first thought was the Phoenix,
Hmm.
just because of the look, the wings, especially how things go later on in the episode. Just certain shots, it just gave me that Phoenix energy.
Oh, I could
Um,
totally see that. I could totally see that. And the way they had set up Birdie in the previous episode, which I think probably was in a different universe, but the way they kind of set that up, making Birdie seem like this extremely OP character, was really doing it for me in that moment.
Hey, but speaking of OP characters, we have to mention, I think, the most OP character, at least villain wise, that we've gotten in just the MCU in general, Infinity Ultron.
Oh, for sure, man. I thought that was fantastic. And I mean, the way they talked about it, right? Because they were like, "Hey, the glass is shattering. Something's going on with the Watcher. We need to help him. We need to figure out how we can get to him." And they very slyly put in um, Kang the Conqueror's time chair because
Caught that too?
yeah, and all of a sudden Captain Carter just pulls up in it. You know what I mean? So at some point
Yeah.
they probably killed one of the variants of Kang and took the time chair, and I like that it's like common knowledge between the four of them that Infinity Ultron is out there. Like they told the story of the Ultron, what happened to him, how he came to power, and they even mentioned that there was other versions of him out there, and that they would come to power with this Infinity gauntlet, and then if they didn't hear the Watcher speak to them, they just sat in their universe doing nothing because they've already conquered the whole thing. And that goes back to that original Ultron who got the Infinity Gauntlet. And that boy, That boy killed Thanos in about 3.5 seconds. It was nothing.
That boy ended everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
It was
Yeah.
crazy that they needed him, and then it was crazy that they went in there trying to fight him. They went in
Yeah,
there.
that was cool though.
It was cool, but it was like, hey, y'all, you got a lot of power, but you ain't got nothing on that version of Ultron in his universe. You ain't got
Oh,
nothing for him.
nah, when they tried when they were trying, he was chill about it too. He was like, "What are you doing? Stop." It's like, quit this. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's fine. You're like, I don't have to waste my time like this. But when they brought him back, that was one of the moments where I was glad to see him back. I was happy to see him back because had the he had the second best episode for me
yeah,
for the first season of What If.
yeah.
So when they brought him back and they explained how he was still alive, it was one of those situations where it's like I just feel like I had to turn off my brain for a minute and just be like, you know what, he's back. It's cool. It's fine. He's one of my favorite things that they've done with the show. So let's see where they go with this. And then they make him even more OP by having him absorb one of those multi dimensional shards. And I'm just like, we're here now. Like this is what if is supposed to be about, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And at this point, it kind of brings us into going into the next episode, which is the final episode. Which I kind of didn't expect they were going to do this, but they kind of went back and told us the story of how Uatu was chosen to be one of the Watchers, and the Elder Watcher kind of teaching him and showing him the way and making him say, the words to become an actual watcher. I thought that was pretty interesting because we've never really seen the birth of a watcher.
That yeah, that was cool to see. It was good to see Uatu's beginning, just because this show has also been like a story about him as well, like connecting with humanity and seeing the values of life, and and being the only one that wants to do something about it. So it was good to see how he got started, and also the start of the episode kind of mirrored the end of the episode as well. Just situations were reversed, but we'll get to that in a sec.
Absolutely. And this was the first episode that Uatu was not the narrator at the beginning of the episode. The like prime watcher was the one to narrate the beginning of this episode. Um,
Yes, yeah.
and one thing that I think I got to take away from this episode that I thought was funny is when everyone started getting their suits, right? And
Hmm.
the watchers went from robes to their like fighting suits. Did you notice the watchers have hands, bro? Like the watchers have hands, bro. They were throwing the most hands that I've ever seen an old man with a big ass dome. I mean, they was throwing nonstop mitts. I did not think that the watchers had hands like that.
The Watchers got hands and gauntlets apparently. They almost look like infinity gauntlets.
I mean, when he powered them joints up, and then the other dude had like a sword, they was ready for battle. It was pretty gangster. But since we were talking about OP, let's mention the fact that when all the chips were down, all four of those women were pushed to the peak, and they thought they was gonna be dead. Watu said, "I got an idea. S- Repeat after me," and made all four of them into watchers.
Yeah, that and when we were when we got to that point, that's when again it was one of those moments where I'm like, this is what the show's about. What if, like, hey, and this the final one? Hey, well, let's just throw everything at the wall. Like let's just do whatever let's do whatever we want. Like they didn't even get the full uh they didn't even get the full speech out. They didn't even get through the whole thing. He was just like, all right, just Like, yeah, just accept. Just say you accept. We're fine. I'm like, all right, good. Hey, we here now. We here, so let's do it. But like that whole scene, and then seeing his eyes light up in that smoke, and then seeing the rest of their silhouettes form behind him, that was that was tight. That was mighty nice.
That's peak MCU, man. Like that's what we're here for. You know what I mean? To see that look on those dudes' faces and being like heretics, like you've made one of us, and like the fact that it seems to be at this point that none of them have enough power to really destroy any of them. You know what I mean? Like all of them are just going back and forth, fighting, you know what I mean? But I thought it was interesting they had one last move, you know what I mean? And then they kind of turned and did that spinny thing. But you know what they looked like? They looked like what do you they were in Loki season 1. We thought the Living Tribunal. They look like the Living Tribunal for a second.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, that's actually because I knew that they looked familiar when they did that. I had seen that image before, but yeah, like that whole image, that whole scene was amazing. Like I gotta say, like props to like the animation team, you know, that puts this stuff together just because we saw it like that image of them like fully formed together and like that just looks so trippy. And we also in the battle scenes and the action scenes, you know, just in this main episode, I feel like is one of the most like one of the most amazing animated action scenes we've ever seen from a Marvel production.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, they really put all of it into this one. I mean, and it was kind of like this was their kiss goodbye. This was their siren song. This was the end for them. So they really put it into it. You know what I mean? They got Captain Carter sacrificing herself for the greater good to stop them from erasing everyone out of time and history. You know what I mean? And Uatu kind of speaking to them and showing them the new way that we're not here to just watch anymore. You know what I mean? Where we need to be the bigger force, and sometimes humanity needs a guiding hand. Humanity is overall good, but they're going to need a guiding hand and to teach them how to be a new version of the Watcher.
Right. Yeah. And that the way that they brung that together with Uwatu being the one like looking at the eminence and you know being like yeah like you said like we have to be the ones that not just act we not just watch but we have to act sometimes you know and also have to call back to when Captain Carter sacrificed herself the way that she did in the universe that they ended up in Doctor Strange's
Yeah,
universe where he was the where
absolute
he
power.
is he yeah he's absolute power he's eternity in a
Yeah,
way
essentially.
in his universe yeah and that was that was amazing to see and you know I gotta say this I gotta get it out just because I'm a little petty when it comes to this but seeing that little outline of him in the stars it made me, and this is a little off topic, so forgive me, but it made me think about, you know, the whole Lion King and Mufasa in the
Absolutely.
stars thing. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And I still have a bit of a beef with Disney for not giving us what we needed to get in that live action adaptation, which is one of the reasons why I'm not seeing the Mufasa movie. But getting back on topic, that was a very cool that was a cool image to see. But I wanted to ask you a question of when they were essentially trying to wipe out all the whole universe, and you saw like the different variations of each of the characters that we were seeing fight these Watchers. Did you have a favorite uh, version of them that you saw as like it looked like they were getting erased away, like of
Oh
any character?
man, so it's kind of funny because I went through a couple threads online and looked at
Mhm.
each one of those characters, you know what I mean? Like the different as they were kind of the echoes of them were kind of leaving their bodies. Off the top of
Yeah,
my head, I don't remember which one I liked the most. I remember there was one Storm one I liked a lot. And then there
Hmm.
was one Captain Carter one that I liked a lot. But even some of the other, wild what if scenarios, the only one that I can think of off my top of my head right now was Blade as Moon Knight.
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That'd be
So,
nice. That something.
so overall, what are your thoughts on the show? If you had to rank it between 1 and 10, and what's your overall thoughts on the What If brand, and then what we presume will probably be the last season of What If overall?
To be honest, when I was thinking about my grade overall for this season, I was leaning honestly like towards a 6 out of 10. But the finale, the two-part finale, kind of it got better for me in the long run. So I'd say I would bump it up to a solid 7 out of 10. It was a solid season for me. A solid way to go out if this is the last that we're going to be getting of the What If series for now. My overall thoughts of the show of the season and the show is again, we had a lot of great concepts, great action, great animation. The only things that I feel we were kind of missing from this season and even the last season was just more connectivity,
Right.
like and more a bit more of a deep dive into some characters that we've only seen like a handful of times. I feel like we could have gotten more, especially with the ending, how they ended everything and showing the different variations of possibilities. Like you said, we had say a Moon Knight blade.
Yeah.
Was that, yeah? We had that. We had a six-legged Spider-Man.
Yep.
We had I think I saw Gamora as Gore the God Butcher, so she would have been Gamora the God Butcher.
Yep.
Uh, we had a lot. Even though we saw Riri Williams as Punisher. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
clearly wanted. They clearly want to do a lot with Riri Williams, and I'm very excited for her character to make her official debut in the MCU this year. I just wish that we got it sooner. That way I could connect with her more in the episodes of her that she was in for this that they gave us. Um, I hope that they bring it back eventually at some point. Maybe they'll do it after we're done with this whole saga. We have some more X-Men and Fantastic Four stories to tell. Um, but for now, like I said, 7 out of 10, solid, good show, but just left a lot to be desired. It felt like we left a lot of ideas on the cutting room floor.
It's kind of funny that you said that because my initial thought for season 3 is also 7. I think it's definitely above average, but it wasn't extraordinary.
Right.
Wasn't a crazy extraordinary season. I still think season 1 did a better job. But I really enjoyed it. Now, my overall for the entire show as a whole, I'd probably give it maybe like a 9. I really love this show, and I really love the idea of playing with all of these characters in out of the box scenarios. It's kind of what we would do as little kids playing with our toys, is put them in these strange and weird scenarios. You know what I mean? So I really love that and the concept of what if. So I kind of scored it very similarly than you did. I did think that season 3 definitely left me with more questions than answers, and it definitely left me with more want. Like I almost feel like it's necessary to have a season 4 to explain some of those episodes and some of the things that were happening. But at the same time, I get it that it's got to kind of come to an end so that they could restart, the whole universe and give us better what if scenarios. There is a rumor that they're going to do another show with Kohori and Captain Marvel, or Captain, not Captain Marvel, because and she's not there, and Captain Britain's not there, but Haley Atwell's character will be gone. So I think it
So
would just be Storm, Kohori, and Birdie.
Birdie
I
as
know
the
they were
yeah.
I can't remember the name right now for some reason, but I know they were talking about doing a spin-off show. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And man, it was a good season. It was a good ride, and it's fun to cover it and have these conversations. So I'm pretty excited, and we'll see what's next. So if you also liked What If, just like me and Jay, go down in the comments, let us know what you thought. Follow us on all social media. Of course, my name is King, and that is JC3. Um, we have a lot more upcoming content coming on in the next few days. We'll be covering WWE's Monday Night Raw on Netflix, the first ever. So stay tuned for our coverage on that. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and tell everybody what you think. And we'll see you next time, y'all. Peace.
We'll see you later. Stay nerdy, y'all.